Hello there, and thanks for staying with us on Africa Independent Television, AIT. Welcome to People, Politics and Power. I am Imonia Marere. Our focus today shall be on Nigeria's legislative arm. For years, the country's legislative arm has been under scrutiny, with about 469 members, comprising 360 members of the House of Representatives and 109 senators, maintained by taxpayers. An analysis of the legislative arm and its continued relevance to national development becomes justified and imperative. Chapter 5, Section 47 to 129 of the 1999 Nigerian Constitution as amended unambiguously states that the legislative arm shall, among other things, make laws for the good governance of the country, as well as carry out oversight functions of government establishments. The 2014 National Conference examined the role and performance of the legislature and recommended a unicameral legislature that will be based on equality of states and population. The conference said all states are equal but have different population figures. The All Progressives Congress APC True Federalism Committee, on the other hand, has recommended the retention of the current bicameral system with a caveat: a downward review of the running cost. Proponents of the full-time status of the legislative arm argue that if there is any arm of government that needs nurturing as an investment, it is the legislative arm, because it is regarded as the youngest of the three arms of government. Now, they anchor their argument on the fact that the legislative arm was non-existent when anti-democratic forces were in place. A head of state under a military dispensation with his enormous powers was seen as the de facto executive, while the judicature remained the most stable and coordinated even under the most aberrative form of governance witnessed in Nigeria. Now, the justification or otherwise and the future of the Nigerian legislative arm can only be ascertained if we look at the past and present of this arm of government. This is exactly what we shall be doing on People, Politics and Power. Will it do the nation any good to make the legislative arm a part-time basis or part-time business? Does the composition of the 469 members, that is 360 House members and 109 senators of this National Assembly, make any economic sense? What has been their contribution to national development? Well, joining me in the studio is Duro Meseko. Duro Meseko is a former member of the House of Representatives. Thank you so much for finding time to join us, Duro. Also joining us is Adeshina Oke. Adeshina is of CISLAC, that is Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, a non-governmental organization that has devoted its time to looking at what the legislatures do in Nigeria. Well, before we hit the ground running on our discussion today, let us bring you a report which was put together by our correspondent Chineye Anokuru as the immediate past chairman of Nigeria's Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, and that's talking about Professor Attahiru Jega. It says the future of democracy on the African continent can only get better with the participation of the citizens in the electoral process of their various countries. Now, he made this submission at a forum organized by the Center for Democracy and Development in Abuja to assess democratic transition on the continent in the last 3 decades. Now, we also have for you reactions to the position of Nigeria's Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, who said that Nigeria should think seriously of instituting state police. Now, you remember that the All Progressives Congress, through Federalism Committee, had lent a voice to the clamor for state police. Here are some of the reactions. Let's take a listen.
Before the mid-1980s, African politics were dominated by authoritarian regimes, with the one-party state being lauded by many as a vehicle for nation-building and economic development. After this period, the continent began transitioning into a democracy, with some of the democratically elected leaders continuing to hold on to power by abusing the democratic process. This forum believes that the undemocratic attitude of such sit-tight leadership needs to be checked. It therefore advised the citizens to take control of their future by holding African leaders accountable.
There's a real struggle in Africa today, and that struggle is about democratic regression. It is about the determination of the tyrants, the authoritarians, to reverse the gains of 1989. And what we should be discussing is how can citizens mobilize, struggle to reverse that trend.
Unless people know that votes count and that they can be removed by the voters, rather than they every 4 years buying their positions through the electoral process, then obviously they will not be responsible and they will not be responsive as elected representatives of the people.
The forum is further proposing what it considers a more substantive democracy, where elections are a representation of the people's wishes.
Substantive attributes of democratization relate to active engagement of citizens and their participation, their capacity as active participants to be able to exercise sufficient pressure, whether through their votes or through their engagement in the policy making and implementation processes, to make government responsive and responsible. And that is a requirement in terms of the quality of government.
It equally wants the electorate in Nigeria to adopt this narrative just as the 2019 elections draw closer.
Policing is an aspect of our security that is very germane and very important. Now, if we want our network in Nigeria to be rooted in the local areas, we need people who are indigenous, who can enlist in a forum so that they can gather information from those places that the federal police cannot get into.
Because it will go a long way to help curb lawlessness. The people who are original inhabitants of the state know the nooks and crannies of the state, and so they will be able to figure out where things are going wrong before it gets to the national.
I equally support the state police.
All right, thank you so much for staying with us. It's People, Politics and Power, and we're focusing on the legislature on this edition. Can Nigeria continue to carry a bicameral legislative arm, or should it become a part-time business? That is, members of the legislature come in only when they are required to sit and then go back to their various businesses. And there is a third dimension to all of this. The Emir of Kano, Emir Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, has just written a letter to the president, and in fact he is suggesting to the president that the salaries and allowances of our lawmakers at every level, particularly at the national level, should be slashed by at least half of what they are earning now, so that the surpluses can be used to create jobs, and he believes that if the salaries of a senator is slashed by half, and all of them put together, 109 of them, of course, will provide well over 70,400 jobs for young unemployed Nigerians who will be earning between 90,000 and 92,000 naira on a monthly basis. Same for the House of Representatives. And he has also suggested that, in fact, the salaries and allowances of ministers and other government officials should also be slashed to provide these funds for the creation of jobs for millions of Nigerians who do not have jobs at the moment. Now, this is our focus, and my guest, Duru Meseko, who is a former member of Nigeria's House of Representatives, and Adesina Oke, who is of the Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, CISLAC. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Right. So, here we are. I mean, the first issue is about whether or not Nigeria can continue to carry a bicameral legislature.
Thank you very much. Yes, I believe that very sincerely that the country has the capacity to carry a bicameral legislature. Just like you said earlier, you see, we are still nurturing our democracy. We are not yet as matured as advanced democracies like the United States of America. Therefore, the need for us to grow the National Assembly in Nigeria to maturity is very imperative. If we have a bicameral legislature, as we currently have, you know, for the Senate, for instance, or the House of Reps will serve as checks, you know, on the Senate. If we have a unicameral legislature, there is a tendency for us still being nascent, you know, to act arbitrarily.
Can we really say we are still nascent? Because look, in the Second Republic, we had the bicameral legislature. In the Third Republic, we had the Fourth Republic. Now we are having the same. So we have had a long period of practicing the bicameral legislative system.
Well, I mean, we are not even 100 years old on it. We are not 200 years old on it. It takes time. It takes time to nurture a system as cumbersome, you know, as the legislature or the legislative arm of a country. It's not something that you do or you get overnight. You know, it takes this and that. And you find out that there are some very critical positions that we've witnessed in this country where the Senate takes a position and the House of Reps says, no, this is not the way to go. So for me, and for as a Nigerian, I believe that for now we still need it. By the time we get to maturity, then we can decide to say, okay, let's take a second look. I believe the maturity can come anything from 60, 70 years. Well, it's you see, 100 years in a democracy is like, you know, is like a year. I mean, if you look at it, you know, because you have to practice this, you drop this, you know, you try this, you drop it until you know, conveniently get your act, you know, to put your acts together and you get it, you know, like that. So it's not something we can just, you know, in a overnight. Oh, let's scrap House of Reps, let's leave the Senate alone and all that. Even I mean the United States of America, who are like over 200 years or 300 years as a democracy, they still maintain a bicameral legislature. So there must be an advantage. There must be something that they see that some of us are not seeing, or some advocates of unicameral legislature are not seeing.
Additional, what will be your response to that?
Well, my stake is that I do not believe that it is actually in the form whether it is bicameral or unicameral, there are major important things that we need to consider. One of these important things is that, one, yes, given the time factor, just like you have rightly said, we have come close to about 20 years, 40 years, 20 years, 25 years in this democracy, first, the Second Republic, and even a child that was born then is almost going to get married, It means that, of course, it has gotten to a kind of maturity and has capacity. But the question we need to ask ourselves is that, given all this number of years, has our legislative arm been able to live to that capacity in terms of the work to be done? Then secondly, is the issue of the cost. Yes, there is no problem with bicameral legislative arm, but the problem is, one, the capacity to do the work. Are they doing the work the way it ought to be done? Secondly, what about the cost that has been involved? Because all these things has to do with governance. It has to do with representation. It has to do with how you model and nurture a vibrant and useful democracy. So to my own mind, it is not a question of whether it is going to be unicameral, because even when you make it unicameral, it does not also erase the fact that those two issues need to be addressed, which of course are the problems that we are having today.
So for you, even if it remains bicameral,
yes,
we can still make it less expensive to run.
Absolutely.
And make it more productive.
Exactly.
Yes.
Because what we have today is almost like a jamboree. 360. Some people are just sleeping in the National Assembly. It's not all of them that are vocal. Of course, it doesn't mean that you have to be shouting or talking. But to do the real work, look at what happened recently when they were passing the order of election. It was only about 35 that were even, in the chambers to do that. Out of 360, can you say that one is effective and productive?
No, they will tell you that they were out on oversight functions and committee work.
For such an important discussion, then this is where the problem is. And these are the issues that needs to be trashed. And when you look at the cost, it's not even about the salary. It's about allowances, which of course nobody knows what goes for what. And that is where the whole thing is piled up. And I think even Nigerians need to start thinking now of who should go and represent them. Most of the people that are in the National Assembly, some of them have not, they barely graduate, then they went to the National Assembly, especially in the House of Reps. And they have never gotten an experience. Because when you want to talk about, making a bill or what have you, you need to have an understanding of what the society is, such that it can be informed, apart from the research. Because when you do research of other places, you need to bring it to the local content. So it will be based on your experience that will inform what you will be putting on the table. So these are all germane issues that needs to be addressed.
Now, the issue of productivity versus the cost of maintaining this large number of lawmakers in Nigeria's National Assembly. Very many Nigerians, when they put this side by side, do not see, they cannot measure creditably the productivity of the National Assembly, of the lawmakers, put against the cost at which it is costing the Nigerian people to maintain them.
Well, my own take on that is, as a Nigerian, I feel what Nigerians are feeling, especially given the fact that, the outrage, that normally heralds year in, year out, the so-called allowances of lawmakers and all that. But I would say that we have statutory agencies that should address that. The Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission. The National Assembly does not fix salaries for themselves. They do not fix allowances. We have this agency that does that. So it is incumbent on revenue mobilization and fiscal commission, to look into it, to see if they've gone wrong, to make amends. But what I'm even saying is, the legislators, the politicians.
You know how sensitive that would be.
Absolutely.
For any executive arm to want to initiate that process, that it will put it at loggerheads with the National Assembly, with the lawmakers almost immediately.
The Revenue Mobilization Commission, has some form of independence. And of course, this is if the issue is very popular, with the people, I'm sure the legislators will not see anything wrong with it.
Why can't the legislators on their own initiate that process?
Yeah, but you see,
they need to
exactly where I'm coming to, because the legislators are also part of a larger Nigeria that sees an average legislator as a cash cow. Oh, this is my senator. Day in, day out, you call your senator, the school fees of my children, this and that, hospital bills, this and that. They are all bogged down with myriads of requests from constituents. And they don't do it, you lose your next election. So the legislators have no choice than, of course, also to start running around, even if their allowances are huge, as alleged, of course, naturally, because of the bills that they pay, that they've had to pay, of course, that it will be wrong of them.
They are not the only ones who pay bills. There are a number, very many millions of Nigerians who are not in government, or even government employees, who also have to pay similar bills.
Yeah, but of course, certainly not the same numbers. An average lawmaker, I was a member of National Assembly, and I knew that there was no day that I got less than 50 or 100 calls asking for money. This one, that one, this one, that one. Where do we get the money from? So, it's a much more difficult issue that should be tackled not only at the point of, the legislators, they are earning very fast salaries, let's cut it off or something. But even if it has to be done, you said, why would the National Assembly not initiate that themselves? And I've told you why. It's difficult. How will the National Assembly also cope with these myriads of requests from constituents?
And we also hear of complaints on a day-to-day basis of constituents who say their representatives do not even as much as get back to them until perhaps the next election.
Absolutely. Of course, in any family, there must be one or two black sheep. It happens everywhere. But I'm talking of, on a general note, I'm talking of 80-90% of the legislators. This happens to them day in, day out. So we have to take a more holistic look, not just, to say, the legislators are very, very callous, they earn fat pay, they earn this and that. But we also have to look at it again.
How plausible is that argument?
There are some things that Honorable have said that I think, because I still stand to be corrected, because I know revenue mobilization fixes salaries, not only for the legislature, but the executive and everybody. But when it comes to allowances, I'm not saying only the legislature is guilty of this. Even the executives, they are also guilty of this. Because when you look at people's salaries, it is not commensurate with what they are flagrantly, exposing to the people. Because it is not in the salary they are getting this. It is from the allowances and other things that comes to them. And because those ones are not regulated, that is why it goes. It's not only the legislature, even the executive. And that is why when they call for even all the executive in terms of ministers and what have you, they need to cut it down. This is not the only place where democracy is being practiced. We have seen legislature outside this country where if they cannot cope, because of course we know our houses in Abuja is expensive. Some of them, they can pair together to have a house, but how many of them are doing that in this country? Rather, the moment you are elected as a legislator, when you get to Abuja, you want to have a big mansion. You don't even want to live in Lugbe, you want to live in either in Matama or Wusetu. And it is very costly. You see, the problem is this. Yes, people will call for assistance. Why would they not call for assistance? What have you been doing proactively to make sure that there are bills that will compel free health services? So if somebody is dying and you know you have somebody who is representing him, call for some and call him that, please, I need money to take my child to the hospital. What about the issue of education that has been totally destroyed in this country? Some of us went to public schools and we are here today, but there is no public school again in this country. And ask, who are those people who are having schools? There must be legislation. People must take it critically and seriously, because when those issues are addressed, you will have lesser burden from the people in terms of asking you for assistance here and there. You know, otherwise it will continue to be in this form. And that is why I said it is commitment. It is not about I want to go back to the National Assembly. It should be about I want to make my own mark. If they have voted me this time around, let me see what I can do. It's not that, okay, I have to do it. I have to play along with the people so that I can go back. Do what you need to do to ensure that the life of people will become more meaningful. Because the only essence of going there is to represent them. And if you are representing them, you need to represent them that to those things that will be to their advantage, that you can also make reference to. If somebody is asking for, you can never satisfy everybody. Even those people you are giving money, you cannot satisfy them because their problems are enormous. And those critical aspects, like education, health services, and even the food on their table, they are essential. We need to be proactive in enacting laws that will make rooms for all these things to be well done. A lot of things there are some laws, but and this is also coming in terms of the oversight of the legislature. They need to do it the way it ought to be done, such that they ensure that whatever has been marked in the budget for each of those sectors is well utilized. They are very essential.
Okay, let's take a critical look, Duro, at the proposal by the Emir of Kano, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, who says, look, perhaps one way of doing it is to slash the salaries and allowances of these lawmakers and other government officials, ministers and all of them, and impact the lives of a lot more people than the few who can get across to their representatives and ask for different kinds of amounts for whatever it is. And he's saying, for instance, that a senator who earns about 36 million naira in a month could actually have half of that amount, slash to that half of that amount, and half of that 18 million or thereabout can actually provide jobs for over 70,000 young jobless Nigerians who will be earning as much as 90,000 naira in a month. And you know the ripple effect that will create. Oh, yeah. I mean, if you engage 70,000 people, you know that 4 times that number would be benefiting from that process. Absolutely.
I subscribe to that too. I mean, the proposal by the Emir, it's a proposal that is at this present time very germane and very good for the country. I mean, if it will cut across board, I mean, because if you now have to pick out the legislative arm of government for that, of course they will also complain that what about the executive, what about the ministers?
Also included them. Yes.
Exactly. So if it's something that will cut across, well, why not? So that we can have more money to cater for the welfare of the citizens. After all, members of the legislature were also put there, voted in by the masses, these suffering masses. So the interest, you were not voted in to go and collect jumbo pay. You were voted in to go and make laws that will impact, on the lives of the people. But you see, I also pity the legislators who sometimes, even when they do these things, it will also take, for instance, bills are passed, and the president, the executive, will be looking at the bills. They won't sign the bills. As I speak with you, there are so many critical bills that have not been signed by the president. These are issues. So there has to be that synergy at all times. Critical bills that should have impacted on the generality, on the lives of the people. This had been done by, the National Assembly. But one way or the other, maybe some politics will come in, it will be delayed and all that. These are issues that should also be looked at. So, but on the issue of cutting of costs, I seriously subscribe to it, that across all arms of government in this country, there is very serious need to cut costs across board.
Some have even suggested, that at the time we should have done it and done it well was when we went into a recession. That would have provided a credible opportunity for us to say, look, we cannot continue to carry this financial burden in view of our economic status. But as they always say, it's never too late.
Well, I also want to say that I think Mr. President and the Vice President, perhaps they cut down their own salaries, which of course I was thinking others should have emulated them. But I think beyond that, there are so many expenses that have been generated within the entire government as a whole. Because when you see a minister going in convoy, you see about how many cars going with him. Go and look at the number of, the aides he's going to have. I also know that the Senate president at a point had to cut down his aides, which is what, was in the news.
Almost 100.
And I think if people are so committed, because all about they are doing is governance, is giving back to people, what you have told them you want to give them. Like you have rightly said, the recession was just an appropriate time. For some of them, they don't even need this money. They have made the money. How do you want to see some of the governors who are back as senators, ex-governors, and who are back as ministers? They are collecting not only money as ministers or as senators, they are also collecting all those money that are paid to ex-governors in their various states. I think they are very unfair, because governance is about service to the people. The only thing you can leave is the legacy of what you have done. And it is very essential that they take all these things into consideration. So it was a perfect time. I would have expected some of them to say, okay, look, this is recession time. For the sake of recession, I'm not going to collect salary. I will leave allowances, because they are okay. They have sufficient means. And we need to stop all these convoys that used to go along with them, because they will fuel the convoy, they will repair the cars. A lot of things, not only in the legislative arms, but also in the executive arms. All these things, the only set of the only arm that is a little bit free from all this frivolity is the judicial arm. Because if you see a judge only with his policeman and his driver, and that is a man who is doing a critical job, that can also ask that somebody who has committed murder should go and be killed, a kidnapper to go and be put in jail. You will not see him with a convoy. So what are they afraid of?
When they are supposed to be representing
the people.
Yes.
These are very essential. And they need to look at all those things. It's a question of commitment. And until we start having the right people in all these sectors of our governance, it may be very difficult. Because let me tell you something. What happened in the previous administration, what happens in the previous administration and what is happening today is really there is no difference. And when things are going up in Nigeria, you hardly see them coming down. So when you talk about even reducing the cost, they will tell you, okay, this thing is even becoming more expensive today and they want to increase it. No, these are all the problems. Unless there is a serious and, a commitment on their behalf to say, look, we need to help this country out of this problem.
Now, one of the issues that was considered at the 2014 conference was this whole issue of the economic implications of keeping a bicameral legislative arm of government. And the conferees are, in their wisdom, recommended that, look, why don't you have one chamber that is based on equal representation and population, rather than have a Senate that is based on equality and a House of Representatives that is based on population, or the basis on which constituencies are created, and that this would eventually slim fit the number of representatives or senators, as the case may be, that would be representing the various constituencies and the various states in the National Assembly, and become a little bit more manageable.
Well, I'm an advocate of unicameral legislature in this country, but I believe, it can be made slimmer and fitter, and there are ways of doing it. For instance, INEC has a constitutional mandate, to review constituencies. There are several, I'm sorry to say, of these constituencies that were created during the military dictator years, who, I'm sorry to say, are not fit to be constituencies. We have some 3 local governments, they will make a constituency, some 4 local governments. You even have 1 local government that will be made a federal constituency. Oh no, we have several of them. I mean, INEC can be made to get back to the drawing boards, by reviewing these constituencies. 360, for instance, could be reviewed to 180 or even lesser. And maybe the 109, brought back to maybe something like 90 or whatever. Even if the 109 is retained, 33 senatorial districts per state, including FCT. But of course, at the level of House of Reps, it could also be made slimmer and fitter. And of course, immediately these allowances and salaries, just as we discussed earlier, are cut down considerably. For instance, if a lawmaker is earning 100,000 in allowances in the National Assembly, there's nothing wrong in the country having like 200 members. It's still okay, So it's, to me, yes, we might say 360 in view of current realities is a bit on the high side, to continue to maintain in the House of Reps. But of course, a comprehensive review of redelineation of these federal constituencies is very, very germane and appropriate at this time.
Shina, is that a viable option, that we can cut costs by actually reducing the number of constituencies that are created and ensuring that we have a more compact and a more serious-minded National Assembly? Because some have argued that as it is today, because of the very large number of persons in the National Assembly, it just looks like a jamboree. And like you rightly observed earlier on, most times not even a third of the members are on ground to consider sensitive legislative items.
I think it's a critical issue to be considered. You see, it's not just in terms of making it a unicameral, because look, we have borrowed a leaf from the United States in terms of their presidential system of government. Where they have the Congress and the Senate, and of course the fact is that, well, even I'm not sure they're as large as we are, given their own geographical situation. But the fact is this: you see, there are some, like Honorable has rightly said, where you have even just one local government having been considered as a constituency. There is every need to find a way of streamlining the number of people, because it's not equally helping us. You see, I want to give you an example. When I was given admission into the university, we were just 44 in the class. I was happy. Why I was happy was the whole faculty. One guy said, "Why are you happy?" I said, "I'm happy because I will be able to listen to the lecturer. Because if you are 100, 200, there is tendency that there will be noise here and there. So what do you have in the National Assembly?
Plenty of people, more people standing than
sitting. So what you have in the National Assembly is that you just go and be part of the crowd. Go and be part of the crowd. And what you need to do is just to. Majority are not doing brain work. They are just there to say hi, say nay. That's what's going on. So what we need are serious-minded people, and you cannot have the serious-minded people when there are so many numbers that needs to go. So we need to really streamline such that we can have an effective and efficient legislative arm. It is very crucial. And not only that, also the executive need to trim down. Maybe in terms of their ministry, they need to, if they cannot trim down the ministers, they need to tell them to minimize the aids that they are carrying around. It is very essential.
In fact, the APC True Federalism Committee has actually recommended that we need to have a constitutional amendment where it provides that you should have a minister from every state of the federation when it's not necessary to carry such number along. Why do we continue to carry that number of ministers?
It's absolutely a waste of funds, and it needs to be looked into. If this country needs to move out and be great and to give to the people what they deserve. Otherwise, we are just putting money in the hands of a very few and it doesn't go around. And we are also not assisting the country to have people who are genuinely interested and to be effective in terms of governance.
All right, well, let's quickly also tell you that the decision by the National Assembly to alter the order of elections for the 2019 election has also been generating some reactions of late. For instance, Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello expressed satisfaction with the alteration of the election timetable by the National Assembly. He said so while fielding questions from State House correspondents at the presidential villa last week. He said the new arrangement will ensure that only credible and popular candidates emerge victorious. And now talking about politics of 2019. A group of northern elders say there's need for East elites to forge a united front and secure the future of the region with the Nigerian state. The elders at a Northern Elders stakeholders meeting in Abuja over the weekend said strategies should be evolved to achieve harmony and peaceful coexistence between the North and other parts of Nigeria. Let's take a listen.
I think if you observe critically what happened in the last election, where Mr. President was elected along with other members of the National House of Assembly members, then we call it Buhari tsunami, where the good, the bad, and the ugly are all put together in the National Assembly. It's either going to be in their interest that Buhari tsunami should return them back, or everybody should be on his own. Buhari returns back and let Nigerians select the good ones out of the bad ones to return them back to the National Assembly. Whichever order it comes, this coming general election, I can assure you that Mr. President will win landslide and the good ones will return back to the National Assembly.
So are you saying that this will work against those in National Assembly?
They have the choice to make, and they've made a choice that the goodwill of Mr. President should not rub on the bad ones to return them back.
Relatively among the current 6 geopolitical zones of the country, the 3 northern zones are the worst off in terms of human and physical infrastructure, economy, education. For the people of the North to come out of these challenges, they must resolve the current leadership failure in the region.
We are aware that Arewa Consultative Forum, ACF, Northern Elders Forum, they've all tried, but the politicians and the people generally in the North, we are still very much divided. In 2015, it was actually not the North. The North voted, but the decision of who was to be the candidate was not a Northern decision. What we want is, this time around, let us have an opportunity to come together so that whatever is decided for the North, it is the Northern leaders who decide it, and then we get support from other regions as brothers.
All right, there you have it. Governor of Kogi State, in fact, agreeing with the National Assembly on the order of elections. He doesn't think that everyone should ride on the back of a winning horse. Everyone should stand on his own. And of course, others from the North are saying that they desire to be the ones deciding who the Northern candidate should be in 2019. Well, if the others decide, what will the people do? Those are the questions. But gentlemen, very quickly, everyone seems agreed that we are running a very expensive presidential system of government, and the need to bring down that cost, one of which is the legislature, the other is the executive arm of government. These two arms are the ones that consume most of the money that is spent in the presidential system of government. Well, the disagreement or the varied opinions lie in what needs to be done and how quickly it ought to be done.
Yes, I believe that there is need for an urgent, if I may call it, national summit, you know, with all the stakeholders, I mean the legislature, the executive, even the judiciary, you know, to be represented, where all these issues will be put on the table. I'm not calling for a jamboree, I'm not calling for another constitutional conference, but I'm talking of something like a one-day or a two-day national conference specifically tailored towards this all-important issue of trimming down, you know, the size and cost of governance in this country. And the result of the conference should be immediately taken up, you know, by the executive and forwarded to the National Assembly. Of course, the National Assembly will have no option than to flow along with the people. I mean, if they don't do it, the opportunity is there for the people to vote them out as members. I mean, because this is an issue that is, you know, really, really affecting us as a nation. And we cannot continue like that. I mean, this is an issue that has affected everybody. Even the states are groaning too. Most of the states are virtually unviable. I mean, they cannot even, you know, cope. I mean, most of the states are unable to even fend for themselves, except they go cap in hand to the federal government and all that. So this begging, I mean, so these are issues that desire, I mean, the only thing, you know, that is permanent is change. So why are we afraid of change?
Do you see our present crop of politicians, at every level, local government, state, federal, whether legislators or the executive, having the political will and courage to do what he has recommended?
It's a little bit difficult. It's a little bit difficult. I think, sincerely speaking, it will take a sincere, because to really drive it home, it will take a sincere executive arm of government to be proactive at the leadership level. Because when you leave it at the mercy of the... Look, all the conferences that have been done, there is none that have been considered by the National Assembly. And look at even the issue of the constitutional amendment. Where has it gone to? This particular session is already going withering away. By the time another set of lawmakers
They'll
will
start
come,
all over
they will
again.
start all over again. It means we will not get to where we are going. So a sincere executive arms is the one to initiate this. Of course, the Honorable said that the electoral, the umpire, that is INEC, that they have the power to
redesign
the constituency.
To delineate,
so,
yes.
Yes, so it is possible that, and this is I mean, maybe they are independent, but there is a way the executive arms of government can pass message to them for them to do this, such that they can prune down this number of people that are in the National Assembly. But like you have said, it is not only in the National Assembly we need to focus on. We also need to focus on the executive, because the truth is this, sir. When somebody had gone for an election, he has spent money. Thank God they are talking about trimming down the money that will be spent now. He has spent money, and you just pick somebody who has not done anything and say he's a minister, and he's now having
retinue of aides
and retinue of cars. If I have spent money, what will I be doing? So we need to really look at all those, and that is why I say it all borders on a sincere and committed leadership of the executive.
All right. Thank you very much. That's been our program today. Duro Meseko, a former member of Nigeria's House of Representatives, has joined us. Thank you so much, Duro.
Thank you.
It's good to see you again. And Adeshina Oke, who is of the Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center. Thank you so much. It's also very good to see you again after very many years.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's our program today. Join us again on Tuesday when we bring you a fresh edition of People, Politics, and Power. Do have yourself a wonderful time for the rest of today. Bye for now.